possible guidance. Klein backed up from the fork in the path, without touching Zeriel's corpse. Thump. 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 Suddenly, a sound echoed in the distance through the empty sewers. Klein listened for a few seconds before decisively retreating towards the exit, down the dirty concrete road that ran along both sides of the sewage channel. There was no need to take risks in matters that didn't involve him. Klein closed the iron manhole cover after he climbed out of the sewers. After ensuring that the surrounding area looked normal, he returned to his rented room in the East Borough and changed out of his disguise. Then, he put on his gold-rimmed glasses, walked to another street, took a rented carriage, and returned to Sherwood Borough in the silence and cold of 3 in the morning. However, he didn't return to Minsk Street. Then, Klein made another huge detour, and only after confirming that no one was following him, did he enter his house. He slept till dawn and was woken up by the doorbell. He sat up immediately, put on his shirt, buttoned his vest, and hurried down to the first floor to open the door. And even before that, his premonition ability as a clown was already capable of naturally forming the image of the visitor in his mind. The visitor was wearing an old coat, a brown round hat, and a tattered satchel. He had bright red eyes, a delicate face, and a quiet temperament. It was none other than Ian, the teenage boy who had come to entrust him with a job yesterday. "Good morning, Detective Moriarty," Ian greeted him and looked around. "Any progress?" "Yet. I'm only asking because I happened to pass by." Klein nodded seriously and said, "Yes." Ian seemed shocked as he didn't say a word for quite a while. After a while, he stammered in surprise, "Have you determined Mr. Zeriel's condition?" "Yes." Klein paused for a moment, then said seriously, "I found Zeriel's corpse." "Corpse?" Ian's pupils shrank as he repeated it in a low tone. He wasn't too surprised, as if he had already expected the worst possible outcome. Klein watched silently without interjecting. Sigh, Ian exhaled and warily surveyed his surroundings. "Your efficiency is amazing. Can you take me to see Mr. Zeriel's body?" "No problem. In fact, that's what I was planning to do." Klein then thought for a moment before saying, "I hope you won't mention me when you call the police. Just say that you found the corpse yourself. I believe you know how to make up a reason." Ian wasn't surprised, he knew that not every detective liked to deal with the police. In fact, except for the very famous detectives, who often gave advice to the police with mutual cooperation, the rest were discriminated against, ostracized, and even extorted from. This was the current situation of the Lone Kingdom. "All right," Ian readily agreed. Considering that they were entering the sewers, Klein changed into a set of clothes worn by the common working class, put on a deer hunting cap, and took a lantern with him. Both of them took the public carriage to the East Borough. They walked for half an hour to reach the remote sewer entrance under the watchful gazes filled with numbness and malicious intent. "How did you find it?" Ian asked, half surprised and half curious, as he watched Klein lift the manhole cover and climb down. Klein focused on the area beneath him and answered casually, "Skillful training which includes many techniques in reasoning, investigation, tracking, and interrogation." Ian followed him into the sewers. He nodded without looking disgusted. "You seem to have received very professional training." Klein didn't answer him directly. He held the already lit lantern and led Ian to the fork in the path where they arrived at the gloomy corner. He narrowed his eyes as he approached. More of Zeriel's body was missing now when compared to the previous night. He was missing an arm and half of his ribs. "That's not something a rat can do," Klein muttered to himself and didn't inform Ian of this. With the help of the lantern's light, Ian was able to clearly see the corpse's appearance. He squatted down suddenly, vomited, and gradually vomited yellow-green bile. Klein took out the Kellogg's oil he prepared, unscrewed the cap, and bent over to place the mouth close to Ian's nose. Ian's eyes lit up, and he calmed down. Nearly 20 seconds later, he weakly whispered, "Thank you." He stood up slowly and examined the mutilated corpse a few more times. "I can confirm that this is Detective Zeriel," My condolences, Klein replied out of politeness. I suggest you call the police. Okay. Ian nodded indiscernibly as he followed Klein back to the surface. At that moment, Klein clapped his hands. This is the end of my mission. As for what should be done after this, that is up to you. Ian fell silent for a few seconds. I still owe you 3 matters. You can tell me now. Actually, I can only think of one at the moment, Klein answered frankly. I want to know where I can get a gun and bullets, without needing a full-class weapon permit. Ian spoke, almost without thinking. Go to Braveheart's bar at Irongate Street in the Backlund Bridge district. Find Kasper's Kalinin. Tell him old geezer introduced you. Alright, let's talk about the other 2 matters in the future. I have a feeling that we'll meet again. Klein deliberately nodded casually. Ian gave him a look but didn't say anything. The two split up and headed down different streets in the East Borough. The secluded spot, once again, regained its silence. After walking for a while, Klein suddenly turned around and retraced his steps. He then hid himself in a secluded corner, peeking at the entrance to the sewer. After waiting for 2 or 3 minutes, he saw Ian return silently as he looked around warily. Klein withdrew his gaze in a timely manner, leaned his back against the wall, and listened. He heard the scraping sound of the manhole cover being removed and heard someone climbing down. Carefully poking his head out, Klein discovered that Ian had re-entered the sewers. Was there a clue or something on Zeriel's body? Indeed, this matter goes deeper than it seems. He nodded thoughtfully. Having satisfied his curiosity, Klein decided to leave for real and planned to seek out Kasper's. 2 days later. At tea time, Viscount Glaint was in his home situated in Empress Borough. The door to the study was tightly shut, separating the 4 people inside from the participating guests in the salon outside. Zio, Furs, this is the reward the 2 of you deserve. Dressed in a pale yellow lace dress, Audrey pushed a bulging envelope across the desk to the 2 ladies sitting opposite her. Zio wanted to say something polite, but her hand had reached for the envelope faster than her mouth. Feeling the weight of the money, she could only say sincerely, Miss Audrey, thank you for your generosity. Your honesty makes you look even more beautiful. As she spoke, she untied the thin string around the envelope and saw the bills inside. It was uniform grey paper money with black stripes. The stack was thick and exuded a special smell of ink, one that left one feeling refreshed. £10, Zio took one note out and checked its face value. Beside her, Furs, who appeared lazy and unbothered by money, had also leaned over. This is at least. Observing the thickness, Zio tried to figure out how many notes there were. She couldn't help but exchange looks with Furs and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. This was obviously a lot more than they had imagined. Audrey smiled faintly and said, a total of £800. Decide how you will split the money between the 2 of you. I'm very sorry that this matter had placed you in danger. £800? No, there's no need to apologize. Even if we had to do it again and knew of the possible consequences, I would still accept the request. Even if it's divided evenly, with my savings, it's enough to buy the potion formula for Sheriff. Zio, who was slightly taller than 150 centimeters, stared blankly at the notes in the envelope, wishing she could pull them all out and count them over and over again. She believed that the generous and beautiful Miss Audrey wouldn't pay them any less, but what if she had made a mistake counting? Everyone makes mistakes at times. Zio raised her right hand, paused for a few seconds, then silently lowered it. The corners of Furs's lips couldn't help but rise as she said wistfully, this is even more than the royalties I've received for my Stormwind Mountain villas so far. Should I praise Miss Audrey or laugh at the poverty of an author? She added silently. Viscount Glaint, who was sitting on the sofa, was also a little envious, but it wasn't directed at Zio or Furs. As a viscount with a fairly good financial situation, £800 wasn't a large sum. What he envied was Audrey's ability to hand out money without feeling the slightest burden. Ahem, Viscount Glaint cleared his throat, if you can get the formula for apothecary, I will also provide you with substantial payment. We'll do our best. Zio answered without any hesitation. Then, she looked at Audrey. We've recently come into contact with someone who's suspected to be from the psychology alchemists, and we'll soon have clues regarding the spectator potion you're looking for. Zio, I'm already at sequence 8, far stronger than you. Audrey smiled in a reserved manner as she said, I'm looking forward to it. With that said, the four began chatting about various rumors among the Beyonder circles while following Audrey's example of finding books they wished to read. Suddenly, Zio's eyes lit up as she saw 2 hardcover books. History of the Lone Kingdom's Aristocracy and Study of the Coat of Arms. Meanwhile, Furs also found books that interested her. Geography and People of the Fisak Empire and Traveling the Northern Continent. Honorable Viscount Glaint, may I borrow these 2 books? I'll return them soon. Zio looked pleadingly at the owner of the study. Glaint nodded without much care. No problem. At his response, Furs hurriedly made a request as well and similarly obtained his approval. The corners of Audrey's mouth curved into a faint smile as she witnessed all of this. She looked modestly to the side, pretending to be looking for a book. As a qualified spectator who had just advanced, she had accurately grasped Zio's and Furs's preferences in certain domains after being in contact with them multiple times. Thus, she had made arrangements in advance without anyone realizing it. Letting the one being guided feel like it was done out of their own will was a manifestation of the powers of a spectator. In the evening, Zio was curled up on the sofa in front of the fireplace, reading History of the Lone Kingdom's Aristocracy under the gas lamp's illumination. Furs had gone for a gathering meant for authors. After reading for quite a while, Zio suddenly felt something strange about the hardback cover, so she carefully examined it and found an interlayer where an ancient piece of paper was hidden inside. The front side of the paper was covered with the special symbols created by Emperor Roselle, and on the back was a paragraph written in ancient Hermes. Viscount Glaint's ancestors deciphered some of Emperor Roselle's special symbols. Zio was suddenly excited. She struggled to decipher the ancient Hermes as she muttered silently. The fool that doesn't belong to this era. The mysterious ruler above the grey fog. The king of yellow and black who wields good luck. Chapter 226, The Terrified Zio. Sherwood Borough. 15, Minsk Street. A satiated Klein sat in a reclining chair in the living room, beside a fireplace burning with charcoal. In a warm environment akin to summer, Klein wore a white shirt, a black vest, and thin trousers, while having a newspaper spread open in front of him as he flipped through the section with the most ads. A new type of transportation vehicle is in urgent need for investments. Details to be discussed in person. Klein read the advertisement twice before picking up a pencil from a small, dark red table to his side and circled the message. If there were no commissions tomorrow or the day after, he planned on seeing if this so-called new type of transportation vehicle had any investment value. Such matters were impossible to divine since there was a lack of sufficient information. I hope it's a product similar to a bicycle. Klein mumbled to himself before suddenly hearing an illusory prayer echo in his ears. Who is it? Miss Justice? Mr. Hanged Man? The Sun? Or some clerk at the Backlund Bank is copying my passcode? Thoughts flashed through Klein's mind as he put down the newspaper, returned to his bedroom, and locked the door behind him. Taking 4 steps counterclockwise, he entered the world above the grey fog. He saw that to the side of the fool's seat and by the edge of the ancient mottled bronze table was a clear and bright brilliance that emitted waves of radiance. The experienced Klein calmly sat down and emanated his spirituality, touching the light ripples of light in response to the prayer. The scene in front of his eyes suddenly changed. It was a blurry sofa with a petite woman in a knight's trainee uniform curled up on it. She's not copying my passcode. She's reading a piece of paper. Klein suddenly realized the reason for this. She should be one of the 2 Beyonders that Miss Justice mentioned that requires my vetting. After nearly 20 seconds of silence, Klein didn't give any form of formal response. He planned on taking the next step deep at night. He would then test her reaction, attitude, and way of handling things to test her personality and abilities. Of course, he would absolutely not force others to join the tarot club. The fool that doesn't belong to this era, Zio, who had just finished chanting the ancient Hermes sentence, froze for a few seconds. Then, she suddenly straightened her back and sat up straight. This seems to be the honorary name of a hidden existence. She realized this in horror. Furthermore, her knowledge in mysticism and the various rumors she had heard told her that once someone recited the full honorary name of a hidden existence, it would often attract the attention of said existence. The consequences of such attention was mostly misfortune or could even be described as tragic. Quite a few of those hidden beings were the incarnations of the evil gods and devils. Furthermore, I recited it in ancient Hermes, completely unprotected. I'm so dumb. Why did I focus so much effort in identifying the sentence and actually read it in my head? Zio looked around in horror, terrified that an indescribable monster would suddenly appear in her house. The sofa, coffee table, cupboard, dining table, chairs, oil painting, and other items were all reflected in her eyes, without any changes. After nearly a minute of heightened vigilance, Zio relaxed a little and comforted herself, "Don't worry, don't be afraid. I just said the honorific name and didn't follow up with a prayer. This is an incomplete ceremony, so it shouldn't attract any attention. Moreover, there's a good chance that the name might have been translated by the owner of the paper based on the special symbols left behind by Emperor Roselle. It might not be correct. But I heard that if the evil gods and devils generate interest, they would still provide a response even if the ceremony is incomplete. I'm so stupid, really." As she thought over the matter, Zio's face scrunched up into a grimace. She felt that she had made a grave mistake. After waiting for a few more minutes, she slowly exhaled as she puffed out her cheeks when she realized that there was no obvious response. She stuffed the piece of paper back into the history of the Lone Kingdom's aristocracy as she entered the bathroom with a heavy heart. She turned on the faucet and tried to use the cold water to clear her head. Splash! As nearly transparent water flowed down, Zio hunched her back and reached out her palms to cup some water. Just as she was about to dab the cold water onto her face, she spotted a long, slightly curly brown hair in the mirror through the corner of her eye. As for her, she had shoulder-length, unkempt yellow hair. Suddenly, Zio's hair stood on end. She stomped on the ground and, with a push of her hands, she shot backwards, turning her body halfway around and slamming the entity with her elbow. Pow! She leaned against a warm body, causing the other party to let out a familiar scream before falling to the ground. Zio stopped any subsequent actions and looked at her good friend who was hugging her stomach in pain, tears in her eyes. The corner of her mouth twitched without her realizing it as she said, "Furs, when did you get back?" Furs didn't reply immediately. It took her quite a while to get over the pain. As she slowly stood up, using the wall as a support, she grumbled, "I just got back." "Zio, are you nuts? Why did you attack me without even looking clearly? And you hit me so hard. Where did you come in from?" Zio asked awkwardly. "Through the bathroom window." "Why? Is there a problem?" "As an apprentice, it's normal to not bring a key with me," Furs replied matter-of-factly. Zio straightened her back and pushed away all responsibility. "Then why didn't you go through the door? You really gave me a fright just now." Furs blinked her eyes and said, "If that's the case, I'll have to make one big round. That's too troublesome, I'm used to walking in a straight line." She paused as she asked suspiciously, "However, wasn't your reaction a bit too much?" Zio struggled for 3 seconds, choosing between losing her dignity or losing her life, before answering honestly, "It's because I made a mistake, a fatal mistake." "What mistake?" Furs asked, rubbing her belly as she felt puzzled and concerned. Zio hurriedly recounted the whole story of how she had discovered the interlayer in the book's cover and found an old piece of paper in it. Then, she had accidentally recited the suspected incantation in ancient Hermes silently. What she had recited seemed to contain the honorific name of some hidden existence. You. Where's your brain? It should be fine. The ceremony wasn't complete, and who knows if it's real or fake. Furs looked around, and for some baffling reason, she felt a chill. She followed Zio back to the living room and saw the yellowed sheet of paper, as well as Roselle's special symbols, and the sentence that was written in ancient Hermes. After a quick glance, Furs, the professional researcher in mysticism, nodded and said, "It's not any of the evil gods, devils, and secret existences that I know of. It should be fine. Furthermore, nothing has happened up till now. That means that everything should be fine." Seeing Zio relax, she thought of the pain in her stomach, so she deliberately added maliciously, "Of course, if something were to really happen, there's no way we can rescue ourselves with our meager abilities." Zio's face paled as she blurted out, "Furs, let's sleep together tonight." "Forget it, I'll just sleep on my own." Furs pricked up her brows and chuckled, "All right. In fact, you don't have to worry about it. Think about it, I hear strange murmurs whenever there's a full moon, but I don't see any signs me going mad or losing control." "Well, we should study the other 3 books. If there's the same piece of paper and the same incantation, it means that it's very likely to be a prank from Viscount Glaint." The duo hurriedly flipped through study of the coat of arms and the other books and checked them carefully, but they didn't find anything else out of the ordinary. Zio looked at Furs, who looked back at her, turning the mood somber again. "Should we sneak into St. Samuel Cathedral's nave tonight?" Zio came up with an inspired suggestion. That was the headquarters of the Church of Evernight in the Backlund diocese. Why not St. Hireland Cathedral? "I don't think the Evernight goddess will protect me," Furs subconsciously replied. That was the headquarters of the Church of the God of Steam and Machinery, which was located in the St. George Borough, adjacent to many huge factories in the southeast. The 2 ladies with different faiths fell silent again, and after a while, Furs sighed and said, "And that would make us end up being targeted by the Nighthawks or the machinery hive mind. That might be the goal of that hidden existence. All right, go to sleep. We'll know the answer tomorrow morning. If nothing happens by then, it means that it'll really be okay." In the middle of the night, the waxing crimson moon was obscured by clouds, and the stars were barely visible in the sky above Backlund. Klein instinctively woke up, lifted his blanket, got off the bed, and entered the world above the grey fog. He sat down on the high-backed chair that belonged to the fool. He planned on responding to Miss Justice's companion and proceed with the examination process. At that moment, he suddenly had a new idea. Perhaps he could try and see if he could pull her into the world above the grey fog under the present circumstances. The young lady must have fallen asleep, and even if I succeed, she would probably treat it as a dream that appears clearer than usual. If I succeed, I can sever the connection in a timely manner to prevent her from seeing her surroundings clearly. After repeatedly deliberating over the matter, Klein stretched out his hand and tapped at the rippling ring of light to form a connection with it. Suddenly, Klein felt his spirituality surge out in an unstoppable manner, causing the mysterious space above the grey fog to tremble slightly. Just when Klein thought that his spirituality would be completely drained, everything calmed down. A blurry, distorted figure appeared at the edge of the long bronze table. In her reverie, Zio opened her eyes sleepily and saw the endless fog, the ancient high-backed chair, and a dark figure watching her. Klein was overjoyed and immediately severed the connection according to his plan. The hazy, petite figure disappeared, but within the greyish-white mist, a crimson, illusory star appeared. Klein looked at this scene and confirmed one thing. As long as someone chanted his name, he would be able to pull that person into the world above the grey fog. The crimson star was a symbol of a stable connection. However, there are certain limitations. With my current strength, at most, I can establish another connection. Based on my previous experiences, my current spirituality can only pull in beyonders who are a sequence higher than me, and it won't necessarily be a success. It's just a preliminary judgment, so it shouldn't be a problem if it's someone at the same sequence as me or lower. Klein thought, feeling satisfied. There was no need for him to respond. His attempt was already enough. Zio sat up in her sleep. She had been worrying about the potential dangers of chanting an honorary name the entire time. Not long after she fell asleep, she dreamed of a mysterious space, and a grey foggy figure looking down on her from above. The dream was so clear that Zio felt afraid. She looked at the sleeping furs beside her and thought with a tremble, is it a nightmare caused by fear, or is it because of the attention I garnered from some hidden existence, resulting in being haunted by evil spirits? Yes. There's going to be a gathering of Beyonders tomorrow night. In addition to buying the formula, I need to find a person who is good at exorcising evil spirits to purify myself. Chapter 2